Hello, welcome back to another breaking news update. My name is Jimmy Boyd, and you are watching Boyd News. Want to thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm back with another update coming out from the war between Russia and Ukraine, and I've got a very big lineup of news to brief you all on today. So today's date is June 18th, 2025, and it's Wednesday. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Hope you're all having a great day. We've got a lot of big news coming out from this war, and we've actually got some information today out of Russia that I want to start with. They're actually commenting on the whole conflict right now that's broken out between Israel and Iran, and we're still waiting to hear if the U.S. is going to be joining in strikes directly onto Iran to destroy their nuclear facilities. So I actually want to start out with a story from Russia today as they're commenting on that whole situation over there. So I want to show you guys this story here on your screen. Russia urges the United States not to strike Iran, warns of nuclear catastrophe. Russia cautioned the United States against striking Iran, warning it would destabilize the Middle East, and highlighted the dangers of Israeli strikes on Iranian nuclear infrastructure. So, what I've been reporting to you guys with that whole situation with Iran and Israel lately is that over the past few days, what we've been seeing is just massive strikes all over Iran. Israel's also been striking a lot of the nuclear facilities inside of Iran as well, and some of them have been destroyed already. Centrifuges have been knocked out and destroyed. There's even been reports at the Natanz nuclear facility in Iran also that reportedly after it got hit, there could have been a leak of radiation there. So definitely there is concerns of that. But it's interesting that the Russians are coming out and talking about this today. They're actually starting to comment on the whole conflict going on in the Middle East. So we're going to talk more about that. We also have reports today that in Zaporizhzhia in southern Ukraine, it was heavily attacked by drones last night. There was at least 9 drones slamming into that city and causing major destruction. So we've got video footage coming out from there, and also about 58 drones in total going into Ukraine last night, which is nothing major like what we've been seeing, well over 100 or more each day, but still some significant damage. We also have some updates coming out from Kyiv as one of the apartment buildings that was struck just yesterday with a KH-101 missile from the Russians that collapsed. We had somewhere around 21 people inside that building that lost their lives, and I have some information on that today as well. So let's go ahead and jump into this. Several things I want to share with you here today. So we'll start off here with CBC Watcher. Russia warned the United States against even thinking about supporting Israel's attacks on Iran as the burgeoning conflict entered its 6th day. Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov said on Wednesday that direct U.S. military assistance to Israel could radically destabilize the situation in the Middle East. Ryabkov said that Russia cautions the U.S. against supplying such assistance to Israel as the ministry warned strikes on nuclear facilities had pushed the region millimeters away from catastrophe. Okay, so hopefully we never have any kind of nuclear event over there, but definitely a concern. I have to agree with that, but we'll have to see what happens if the U.S. decides to launch strikes over there onto Iran. But this was a report of DailyMail.com today. Russia warns Trump against bombing Iran, and Ayatollah vows to never surrender after White House gave them 48 hours to avoid U.S. onslaught. So apparently we're still waiting to see if the U.S. is going to carry out these strikes over there. Trump hasn't even commented on it too much. He said a few things today at the White House. And we'll do a separate video on that today talking about that. But clearly here, the Russian Foreign Ministry warning about a catastrophe that could unfold in the Middle East. And while we're talking about that, if you guys remember this story right here, you can see back in February 14th, 2025, about 4 months ago, we actually had a containment structure over one of the exploded nuclear reactors at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in Ukraine that was attacked by a Russian drone. And I thought it was interesting that Sergei Ryabkov today coming out and commenting on this whole situation in the Middle East and saying there could be a nuclear disaster, while at the same time, just a few months back, we had the Russians attacking one of these containment structures and destroying it. And clearly that could have caused a nuclear disaster. So I thought that was interesting. Just wanted to throw that in there, that the Russians have a lot of hypocritical things that they say, while at the same time they're worried about what's happening in the Middle East. They're over here launching strikes on nuclear plants inside of Ukraine. So now from Anton Gerashenko, the International Economic Forum is taking place at Russian St. Petersburg today. Taliban delegation has arrived. They are now welcome partners in Russia. Locals report that internet has been down since last night in St. Petersburg, Plane pilots complain that due to GPS jamming, they have been receiving false alerts about possible aircraft collisions. They say that when the alerts go off, the pilot must descend or ascend sharply, but often there are actually no other planes nearby. Some pilots started ignoring the alert system now, which could lead to accidents later on. So there's video footage coming out from this economic forum that was taking place today in St. Petersburg. This is up in like northwestern Russia, close to the Baltic Sea. And you can see the Taliban here showing up. And just a couple months back, the Russians no longer designated the Taliban as a terrorist organization. They're actually going to start working with them economically now. So crazy news coming out from there. This is actually where Sergei Rabkov made the comments about the whole nuclear catastrophe thing in the Middle East while he was here speaking at this event. Now for Bliskovka, the Zaporizhzhia Regional Military Administration showed the consequences of Russian night strikes on the city. At night, Russia launched 13 drones on Zaporizhzhia. Facades and windows in high-rise buildings were damaged. Warehouses were destroyed and cars were burnt. So we got a video here we can show you guys and a few images as well coming out from Zaporizhzhia. This is in southern Ukraine, and we had a pretty major drone attack over here and lots of damage reported. Take a look at this. All right, so we can see pretty major damage here in the city of Zaporizhzhia, down in southern Ukraine. Lots of businesses and cars being destroyed here in this night attack from the Russians. We got some pictures I can show you here as well. There's a few photos also from a firefighter here cleaning up the scene with all this debris everywhere. You can see a lot of cars were destroyed, even a truck right there completely burned out. Looks like this entire warehouse here full of vehicles was destroyed last night. So very sad to see that. Now, from Euromaidan Press, Ukrainian southeastern city of Zaporizhzhia was under attack overnight, aftermath of the Russian assault on 18th of June. Nova Poshta postal facility completely destroyed in the video. 47 vehicles burned in open parking area, 9 apartment buildings damaged, 6 non-residential buildings damaged, multiple apartment buildings windows shattered, warehouse facilities destroyed. Okay, here's another video just to show you guys real quick too the major destruction from this drone attack last night. And it's been a while since we reported major strikes over here in Zaporizhzhia with drones. I think they got hit by missiles just the other day, but usually we've been mainly talking about Kyiv and Odessa. Kyiv being up in the northern side of the country and Odessa down in the southwestern side of the country. So this is more like at the southeast side of Ukraine that was attacked last night. You can see lots of damage there in that video. Now moving on to Spravdi Stratcom Center. For high school kids across the civilized world, summer vacation means fun, trips to the beach, and all-night video game sessions. For the kids of Kyiv, it means all-night missile attacks, explosions, sleeping in shelters, and shattered lives. But our kids are unbreakable. Yeah, this is coming out of Kyiv as yesterday we had that massive attack of missiles and drones slamming into the city, destroying lots of homes. And you can see kids out here literally picking up debris. Take a look at this. All right, so while these young men here are doing a great deed and helping out the community clean up from these attacks, it's kind of sad to see this, right? I mean, these kids should be out having fun, playing in playgrounds, running around playing tag with their friends and whatnot, yet they're over here cleaning up debris from the Russians launching these massive strikes, which take place almost every single night. I can't imagine being a kid trying to grow up in Kyiv or really anywhere in Ukraine with all these attacks taking place all the time. So very sad to see stuff like that. Now for Bliskovka, the death toll in Kyiv has risen to 23, reports Timur Kachenko. The body of another woman was pulled out from the rubble in Solomayansky district, if I'm saying that right. The work is ongoing. So we got a couple of pictures we can show you guys here. This was apparently some bodies that were being pulled from the rubble. As yesterday I reported to you guys that a KH-101 missile had struck this building right here, and it completely collapsed, like at least 9 floors or more. And there was a bunch of people trapped under the rubble. It was a really horrible event here. One of the first times we've seen a building like this inside of Ukraine collapsing down, multiple floors. We haven't seen this happen recently. But nonetheless, obviously the Ukrainians are attacked here every night. So it looks like they got majority of it cleaned up. Just yesterday, there was a huge pile of rubble right here. So they've been able to get most of the people out, and I believe about 22 people or so were killed in just this one attack in this building. So very sad to see that. Now from St. Javelin, this is the young man we were all hoping would make it, the one whose parents waited for him all day, refusing to give up. 31-year-old Dmytro Isayenko was found under the ruins of the 9-story building in Kyiv's Solomyansky district, where at least 21 people lost their lives. Yeah, so if you guys remember yesterday, I showed you a picture of this man right here with this kind of bomber jacket that he's wearing. And he seemed like very distraught and worried, and he was looking at the collapse of this building. And I was wondering if maybe he had a family member in there. Apparently, his son was inside the building when it collapsed. And once they eventually removed all this rubble, they actually found him. And unfortunately, he did not make it. And this was a picture of him. So, very sad to see that. I just wanted to show you this update off this story we had yesterday. Now, from Max 25. We've got an image here off of Telegram, and I want to show you guys this about communication from Sergey Flash. As you know, I'm an optimist and sound the alarm only in extreme cases. Russia will blow up our entire country with shaheeds. They have scaled up production and are still scaling it up. If we don't start acting right now, our infrastructure, production, and defense facilities will be gone. The main emphasis should be on the mass production of interceptor drones and training the military throughout the country in their use. We don't have time. This is what Suri Sternenko talks about literally every day. Okay, so this is a major warning, and this is something we've been talking about, that the Russians are scaling up their production of drones right now. We should be seeing more major attacks, just like what we saw yesterday. There was somewhere around 440 drones that went into Ukraine. Those numbers are expected to go up. Now, I'm not sure how much their production is going to be affected based on what's happening in Iran right now, because Iran is just being battered by Israel. And we know that Shahed drones come from Iran, so I'm not sure if the Iranians are going to be able to supply more of those. But Russia's already producing their own, and we know that the North Koreans are helping them out now. Also, they're going to be opening up shop with a new defense facility over there, and they're actually opening up another one today. I've got a report on that. North Korea is building a massive military defense facility, so that's not good news. So I'm not sure how much affected they will be by this war that's happening in the Middle East, but nonetheless, they are scaling up their Shahed production. Now, Savchenko Vladimir Senate delays plans for sanctions against Russia and its trading partners until at least July, according to Semaphore. The implementation of the next package of sanctions against Russia has been suspended, allegedly due to the escalation of the conflict with Iran. Senators Lindsey Graham and Richard Blumenthal are focusing on a revised version of their bill that would protect Ukraine's allies from some sanctions for trade in Russia, with Russia, and make other technical changes. But their hopes that the bill will be passed by the Senate this month have faded as other priorities take precedence. So, while we're talking about the war in Iran, look at this report here. Russia sanctions on pause as Iran conflict heats up. Okay, so that's not good news. Now, these sanctions that are trying to come out of Congress with U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham here and also Richard Blumenthal, another senator, they're trying to push this bill through Congress. Now it's getting delayed, and this is supposed to put around 500% secondary tariffs on any nation purchasing Russian oil that would force Russia to end it. Now it looks like it's going to be delayed till at least the end of the month, if not further. So that's not good news regarding that. Now, Max 25, Australia has imposed sanctions on 60 Russian tankers that were used to circumvent oil restrictions and finance the war, according to Andriy Yermak. So this is the head of the office, the president in Ukraine. Okay, so he works right alongside Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine. So this is what he announced today, that Australia imposed sanctions on 60 Russian oil tankers. Okay, so that's some good news there. At least we're getting some sanctions today. Now, Max 25, Ukraine is in trouble after Trump left the G7 summit without meeting Zelensky, according to The Guardian. Ukrainian delegation was left disappointed and even embittered by the fact that Trump did not make Ukraine a priority at the summit. It is noted that an additional blow To Kyiv was the American veto on a joint statement on Ukraine. The United States refused to support text, considering it too anti Russian. The wording, according to Washington, could harm possible negotiations with Putin. Ukrainian officials are now doubting whether Zelensky should go to the NATO summit in The Hague next week, since there is no certainty that Trump will attend. The Guardian notes that Zelensky looked depressed at the summit, and his key goal of persuading Trump to put pressure on Putin to ceasefire was not achieved. Yeah, this was the report today. Ukraine left in lurch as Trump rushes out of G7 without meeting Zelensky. U.S. President said he had to leave to focus on Israel-Iran conflict without addressing Russia-Ukraine ceasefire. Yeah, so we were supposed to be seeing that. Trump and Zelensky were supposed to be meeting yesterday, and Zelensky showed up over there without meeting Trump because Trump reportedly had to leave early on Monday night because of the escalating conflict in the Middle East that the U.S. might get involved. So, yeah, we're not going to see any ceasefire anytime soon, and that's what Zelensky was trying to meet with Trump to speak to him about, was mainly a ceasefire, but also potentially purchasing weapons. So it looks like that's going to be delayed for right now. Now, Ukrainian review, G7 faces new reality after Trump shatters hopes for unity, according to Bloomberg. The differences between Trump and other leaders were evident on serious issues, including the Middle East and Ukraine. European leaders did little to push Trump to impose tougher sanctions on Russia. Trump said the sanctions would cost the U.S. a lot of money. Hours later, he surprised leaders by walking out of the summit. Here's a report from Bloomberg. G7 confronts new reality after Trump spoils hopes for unity. Yeah, so they didn't really get a whole lot done. I mean, there was some trade deals that were being talked about and whatnot. I know that Keir Starmer and Trump were holding a press conference yesterday. But for the most part, in regards to this whole war thing going on and all that, and putting tougher sanctions onto Russia, the G7 didn't really get anything done, and a lot of it is due to Trump. Trump doesn't want to put sanctions onto Russia at all. They don't even want to sign a joint statement to, declare Russia as an aggressor and whatnot. And Trump is basically just doing everything he can to prevent any kind of sanctions or any kind of pressure onto Russia in regards to this war. So not good news for the G7 as well. Now from Bliskovka, the Kremlin is expanding its military presence in the Arctic and preparing a springboard for resource expansion, says Andriy Cherniak, representative of the Defense Intelligence of Ukraine. Russia has become more active in the region due to access to resources in the Northern Sea route. Under the guise of scientific research, it conducts geological exploration and plots routes for ships and military operations. The DIU notes that the institute, which is formally engaged in research, is actually working for militarization. Russia is also installing satellite communication systems for the Northern Fleet and drones. Okay, so Andriy Cherniak here, the representative for the Defense Intelligence of Ukraine, is warning about Russia's actions up in the Arctic, and we know that the Russians are expanding up there. That's also why supposedly Trump wants to gain control of like Canada and also Greenland, so the U.S. can also dominate the Arctic. We know that's going to be a major attention spot for militaries in the world moving forward. Russia's really starting to expand their research and military operations up in the northern areas in the Arctic, and then that obviously creates some issues for other nations in Europe that are close to the Arctic as well, like Norway, Finland, and whatnot near Russia. I have some information on that today. So that's what he was warning about, is what Russia's actions are and their plans up in the Arctic. That is definitely concerning. Now for more translated, YLE reports that Russia is building a new military garrison near the border with Finland, the first sign of a permanent increase in troop numbers within 100 kilometers of the border. So this is something that we reported just about a month or two back. If you guys remember, I did multiple reports on this, that the Russians are expanding their military bases on the border over here with Finland. So that's definitely a concern as well. So reports here that Russia's building a new military garrison near the border with Finland as well. So not good news. They're continuing to expand their military right on the border of NATO over here with Finland. Now, military news UA. North Korea is preparing to build one of the largest military factories in the country amid active arms supplies to Russia. So here's that report today. This is actually coming directly out of North Korea's state-run news. They're reporting that the North Koreans are preparing to build a large military factory, okay, the largest one in the entire country. And I wonder if that's going to be in regards to supplying arms to Russia. Now, we've been seeing 2 times this month that Sergei Shoigu, the secretary for the National Security Council, has shown up in North Korea to meet with Kim Jong-un right here, the North Korean leader. And allegedly, it's supposed to be for military purposes, right? They're getting military aid from North Korea, and then all of a sudden we're getting this major report today that the North Koreans are building this new facility. So I wonder if that has anything to do with Russia. We'll wait for more details on that, but it probably does. Now, from Anton Gerashenko, Vladimir Milov, a Russian politician and economist, told about the shortage of financial resources in Russia and noted that the Russian military industrial complex is already operating at the limit of its capabilities. What's needed is to significantly increase financial pressure on Russia now, not in 2026 or 2027, today. This is critical for Europe's security. And he says, quote, it clearly shows that the financial pressure is so intense that they can't afford to invest anywhere they want to. Investments in weapons, ammunition, and even electronics and optics are suffering and slowing down significantly. They've pulled resources from some areas and funneled them into production of combat vehicles, apparently because the situation is becoming critical for them, Milov said. So there's like a 3-minute video here, but we're not going to watch it. I don't want to make this video longer than it needs to be. It's already going to be a longer video just with all this information here, but he's just warning about, Russia's economic situation, that they're not in a good spot, and right now would be the time to go after Russia with their economy. I mean, think about how many losses they're taking in this war, and even the cost of crude oil has been dropping. I mean, it's risen back up recently because of the conflict in Israel, but just prior to that, the cost of oil was dropping heavily, and that was causing major losses in the Russian economy. So right now would be the time to do it. So he's kind of got a point here, but he's just kind of talking about how Russia's under massive financial pressure right now, and if the U.S. and EU were to really step up sanctions onto them, it could potentially force them to end the war. Now, Kyiv Insider. Residents of the Russian-occupied Ukrainian city of Mariupol complain that things have devolved into the Russian world, with uncollected garbage now lining the streets and promised reconstruction never taking place unless for propaganda purposes. So this was video footage coming out from Mariupol, just going to be showing trash here on the ground and construction that's never started. You can see like pallets of stuff sitting over there. Maybe that for this district that maybe they're going to be building some sort of structures or something, and it never was getting completed. This is actually something that we've heard. I showed you guys a story months back. There was a woman that was walking around in the city of Donetsk that's currently under control by the Russians, and she was talking about how it used to be such a nice and beautiful city. Once the Russians came in and took it over, now it's just a mess. There's trash everywhere. The Russians aren't taking care of the city. So there's just more evidence of that. When the Russians take these things over, or these cities, over, we don't see the Russians upkeeping anything, and seems like they really don't care. And at the same time, obviously, all their money is allocated for this war, so that's a major reason why as well. Now, war translated, a fiber optic FPV drone flies just centimeters away from Ukrainian soldiers speeding in a buggy. Yeah, I want to show you guys. It's pretty crazy. This man's hanging on the back, and then an FPV drone flies right over his shoulder and almost hits him. Take a look at this. All right, pretty scary video here. Just towards the end, we'll kind of move a little bit forward here, but you can see this drone just whip by him. Let me go back just a tiny bit. Right there, you can see a little black thing fly right over his shoulders, probably just inches away from slamming into his shoulder, and it probably would have killed all these men here on this buggy, but thankfully it did not, and it crashed right behind them on the ground. So pretty crazy video right there. Just wanted to show you guys that today. That was being widely shared. Now for Bliskovka, Ukraine will need more than a year to identify the bodies of deceased Ukrainian citizens transferred by Russia, Interior Minister Ihor Klimenko said. Each package we receive may contain not just one body, but many remains of bodies of 1, 2, or 3 people. During the examination, we began to detect fragments of the body of one person in several packages or in different repatriations. The enemy is trying to do everything to complicate our work and delay time, Klimenko said. Okay, this is something we've heard, that the Russians are preparing a campaign right now to kind of make it appear as if, Ukraine is not serious about taking these bodies back. There's been somewhere around 6,000 fallen defenders on the Ukrainian side that have been returned back home in recent weeks. There was like another 1,200 that I just reported on. I think it was on Monday. And we had some information on Monday that apparently the bodies that were coming back from these transfers from the Russians had like Russian soldiers mixed in with them, even body parts apparently that were not part of any soldiers. and it's just very mixed up and just kind of all over the place. And they're kind of stating here that the Russians are doing this on purpose. We've been hearing that they're trying to step up some sort of information campaign to kind of either put Ukraine in a tough spot or make it appear as if they're trying to sabotage this thing or something. There's just something going on here. So just more reports about this, that the Russians are just doing some crazy, insane things with some of these fallen defenders that are being returned back home. Now from KVIS, we've got a new report here. This is on Bloomberg. It says NATO to stop disclosing details of military aid to Ukraine. Okay, this came out today. This is a very big report. A lot of people are saying, why are we just barely doing this? NATO should have been disclosing details of military aid to Ukraine a long time ago, and apparently they're going to start doing this. And it says right here, NATO will stop at disclosing details of arms deliveries to Ukraine in order to complicate Russia's military planning. Representatives of 3 NATO countries told the Moscow Times on condition of anonymity ahead of the military alliance summit in The Hague, which will take place on June 24 to 26. So it makes you wonder if Ukraine's going to start getting massive amounts of military aid here very soon, because Germany just did that recently in the last month or so. They stopped disclosing or started disclosing details of their weapons transfers to Ukraine also. So it looks like NATO in whole is going to be doing this from now on, at least for right now. Now, from Ukrainian Review, most NATO armies do not meet Ukrainian standards of combat effectiveness. The alliance should learn from Ukraine's experience in using drones, sea drones, and more. This was according to General Ben Hodges. He's a retired general out of the U.S. Army. And yeah, he stated this, that NATO should start learning experience from Ukraine, considering that Ukraine's having all this experience with drones and whatnot, sea drones, using these to strike Russian targets, and Ukraine has become the experts with drones. That's why recently France was opening up a defense industry plant inside of Ukraine, and they said they were going to let Ukraine run that plant versus France because Ukraine has better experience with drones. So this was Ben Hodges basically calling on NATO today to start getting experience from the Ukrainians over there. And think about if Ukraine were to join NATO and how much experience they would bring to NATO, considering they've been fighting against Russia all this time. So that's also why Ukraine's trying to get into NATO. Now, War Translated, according to Reuters, Keith Kellogg is planning to visit Belarus soon to meet with Alexander Lukashenko. Trump's special envoy sees his trip as an opportunity to launch peace talks aimed at ending Russia's war against Ukraine. Well, surely Lukashenko will show him all his cards and explain exactly where the attack on Belarus was supposedly being prepared from. Yeah, so apparently this report today from Reuters says Belarus, as Lukashenko's sources say. It's kind of cut off, I think. There's probably more information up there that didn't get put here. But yeah, Keith Kellogg, he's supposed to be meeting with Alexander Lukashenko in Belarus here very soon, and maybe they're going to try to prepare some sort of summit or something, is what I'm thinking, maybe in Belarus, to try to get Ukraine and Russia to start negotiating again. But I don't expect much to come from this meeting. I just wanted to show it to you guys. We'll see what happens when he actually heads over there, but I'm thinking it probably won't bring about much. Now from Bliskovka, Vladimir Zelensky and Trump may meet on June 24th in The Hague, according to Radio Liberty. A working dinner is scheduled for this day as part of the NATO summit. Now, I'm not sure if Zelensky's going to be there. I would think he's going to, because apparently he got invited to this NATO summit in The Hague on June 24th, which is in, 6 days from now. So allegedly, if he shows up there, he's going to be meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump. And we'll see if Trump's going to be there also because of what's going on in the Middle East. I would think if they get involved in this war in the next couple days with what's going on down in Iran, he might not even be able to make it to that, depending on how things are going over there. So we'll see how that goes. But allegedly, these two might be meeting. Now for military news, UA. Europeans should start learning Russian if Ukraine doesn't get more support, says EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Kaja Kallas. Kallas added that Ukraine is Europe's first line of defense, so we need to do more for Ukraine, but also for our own security. Yeah, this was a statement by her today. She was speaking at a major conference for the EU. And she was warning that, if Ukraine doesn't get more support, she was also saying we need to start getting ready to learn Russian if we don't step up our support for Ukraine. So she was just calling on the EU to start giving Ukraine more of what it needs right now, especially considering that the U.S. is potentially going to be withdrawing support soon. The EU might have to step up big to fill that gap if that happens. Now from Slava, Russia could run out of armored vehicles by the end of this year, says the Institute for the Study of War. According to the Institute for Study of War, Russia has already used up more than half of its pre war reserves and armored vehicles. Only 46% of tanks, 42% of infantry fighting vehicles, and 48% of armored personnel carriers remain in stockpiles. There's a little screenshot of this article that was talked about with the Institute for the Study of War. We're not going to go over this here, but yeah, that's what they were reporting, that Russia's stockpiles for a lot of their vehicles are very low. They're like somewhere around 40%, if not lower, in terms of their reserves. And this is something we see already. I've been showing you guys numerous pictures of like all kinds of vehicles that the Russians use. They makeshift, motorcycles with like a bathtub attached to it. They makeshift all kinds of vehicles, just regular cars that are old and beat up, and they take the doors off of them. Even coming down to using like donkeys, literally donkeys, and makeshift wheelbarrows just to move equipment around on the front line. And this really shows that Russia is short on vehicles, and that's what the Institute for the Study of War was reporting today. Now, Vicegrad 24 breaking: a Romanian EU diplomat has been beaten up in Vladivostok and threatened with death by two men working for the Russian security services. The EU has summoned the Russian ambassador to the EU to protest against the attack. Yeah, this is not good news. There's an EU diplomat that was allegedly beat up over here in Vladivostok. This is far eastern Russia, close to like North Korea over here as well. And don't know too much information on this, but yeah, the EU has summoned a Russian ambassador to figure out what's going on here. But yeah, they allegedly were beat up by two men allegedly working for the Russian security services. So that's not good news. I'm not sure why this person would be over here. Why is this EU diplomat over in Vladivostok? Were they a spy? I have no idea what's going on with the situation. It could really be anything. But if I get more information on that, I'll let you guys know. But that's a pretty concerning story. Now, for more Monitor, the Spotify founder has invested 600 million euros in Helsing, a company that supplies drones to Ukraine. Helsing also has orders from Germany, Sweden, and the UK. Now, this was interesting. $600 million investment coming from Spotify. Now, Spotify investing into a defense company that supplies drones for Ukraine. That's pretty crazy. I mean, how does a music company start investing into defense supplies for Ukraine? That's pretty crazy they were doing that. So 600 million investment in Helsing, that's going to help out to supply drones for Ukraine. So yeah, you guys can go research that if you want to, but apparently that's a pretty big story today. Spotify stepping up and helping out also. Now from Bliskovka, Air Defense Forces of Ukraine neutralized 30 out of 58 Russian UAVs. 12 were shot down by firepower. 18 were locally lost, suppressed by electronic warfare. Enemy airstrikes were recorded in 9 locations. So, looks like today we didn't have any missiles going into Ukraine overnight, but there were 58 drones in total. Again, we had some damage down in Zaporizhzhia that was reported today, as a lot of those cars and businesses were destroyed. But for the most part, 30 out of 58 were either shot down or suppressed by electronic warfare, so a good amount of them destroyed by the Ukrainians. Now Kyiv independent, these are the indicative estimates of Russia's combat losses as of June 18th, according to the Armed Forces of Ukraine. In our final update of the day, Russia's losses as of June 18th, 1,040 troops, 31 AFVs, 137 vehicles and fuel tanks, 7 tanks, 37 artillery systems, 184 UAVs, 1 MLRS, and 23 cruise missiles. Okay, so for the most part here, still about average numbers. I mean, AFVs, that's a pretty big number there being destroyed. We've usually been seeing like 10 or less. Same with the tank numbers. These up a tiny bit higher. We've been seeing 5 or less over the past few days as well. But otherwise, a lot of these numbers still pretty much the same, showing these cruise missiles here as well that were taken down overnight as we had that massive attack on Kyiv yesterday. But just want to share some of these updates here also in terms of Russian losses and equipment and whatnot. And I want to thank you guys very much for tuning in for this update today on June 18th, 2025, and I hope you all have a wonderful day today. So let me know what you think about all these details down below in the comment section. That's going to be it for today's update. If you got something out of this, please smash that like button. Also, if you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing down below. Hit the notification bell, that way YouTube can notify you. And with that, hope you all have a great day. Everybody take care and God bless, and we'll see you in the next one.